Hello there. Here I review movies, and today's film is I Saw the TV Glow. It's a dramatic film about two teenagers bonding over a supernatural television show. Jane Schoenbrun wrote and directed the film, which stars Justice Smith, Bridget Lundy Payne, and Ian Foreman. Okay, to start, let's go over the film's positives, all of which come from the packaging. The film's visual journey is filled with interesting imagery. They go out of their way to represent parts of their story through supernatural events, and it leads to some cool-looking moments. There's also a lot of great coloring and dynamic lighting, as well as a few complex shots that make the world feel unique. They also do a good job of capturing the emotional performances of the actors. It was easy to get drawn into their monologues and solo acts. Behind the visual journey, they had a variety of soft rock, indie rock, and pop music. The tracks tend to be softer and more about setting the mood than following the emotional journey. They add a little bit of sadness and joy into the film in small doses and are entertaining to listen to. The cast also does a good job of their roles. There aren't many parts outside of the leads, but we get little micro doses of big emotions from actors like Danielle Deadwyler as Owen's mother, and Amber Benson as Johnny Link's mom. For standout performances, you have Justice Smith and Bridget Lundy Payne. The two of them don't get a lot to do beyond monologuing, but both of them manage to inject a ton of emotion into it. Smith plays a confused boy stuck between worlds and suffering because of it. Smith is asked to put on a bit of an autistic performance, which is a little bit confusing, but he works well within the constraints. Lundy Payne plays an abused girl trying to flee from home so that she can become her true self. In the process, she meets Smith's character, and together they bond over their shared problems. Lundy Payne's character is a bit more neurotypical, but comes off as slightly deranged due to the dialogue choices. Their personalities mesh well, though, and you get an interesting relationship between the two of them. Alright, now to address the elephant in the room, the story. It's not a bad premise, but the execution leaves a lot to be desired. For one, it's confusing, and there are so many different elements at play here that it's hard to get a read on what the actual message is. There's also a few different interpretations you could come to that are wildly different from the film's intended message. They didn't explain anything well enough, so the metaphor is going to go over most people's heads. Even knowing what they really meant, it gave me a weird feeling when they started talking about identity death like it was actual suicide. The story is also really boring unless you like trying to figure out metaphors. There aren't a lot of emotional outbursts, there's not a lot of banter or back and forth, and the story moves at a glacial pace. It's basically interesting to people who connect with the themes already, but to anyone else it's just a weird video diary about this guy's life. The visual journey is unclear and hard to follow. For example, it uses multiple actors for Child Owen. One of them is an actual kid, and one of them is an adult man. It's beyond jarring when they swap between them. Then there's all the cutaways to the television show. They never actually show enough of the show to get a good sense of it, but it does end up taking up a ton of time. Later, when they refer back to it, you find out that all of that time was unreliable narration anyway, which makes it feel even worse. The music, as I said earlier, isn't doing anything for the emotional journey, and it isn't significant in any way. During a lot of the big emotional moments, they don't even use music. They rely on the actors' performances alone, and it feels like a missed opportunity. Personally, I found this film to be quite dry. The subject matter is interesting, and there is a ton to connect with in here, but the ideas aren't presented in a coherent manner. The film is boring to watch, not trying anything all that new, and it isn't produced well enough to impress. If you are going through self-identity issues, there are probably better films to watch than this too. Something that will leave you feeling okay about the world in the end. If you want something along these lines, try the movie Kinky Boots with Chiwetel Ejiofor and Joel Edgerton. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 4 out of 10. Remember, these are my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye.